Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Hustlers. A good heist movie needs one of two things, and that is either an interesting heist or a compelling group of characters that you want to go through a heist with. And Hustlers has both of them very strongly. The heist, them being strippers who get stockbroker guys, you get them completely wasted on this interesting drug concoction they had that's half Molly, half other things, kind of get them to pass out, sign their credit card statement, and max out their credit cards. No one will come after them because I think they say at one point, what are you going to call the police? Say, help, I spent $5,000 at the strip club. So they knew they could sort of get away with it, and that these were definitely evil people who had ruined the country and ruined a very booming time in their lives before the recession, which this film definitely shows. But as much as this film is about that heist and like how they accomplished it, and that's probably why we're even making a movie about them, what really makes this film compelling and interesting is the characters. Like, you know, anything from an MCU movie to any major Hollywood film, the success of it is really based on character, despite what people have you believe about modern Hollywood. This is very much so within that. I think one of the reasons that makes this film so compelling, makes this heist so interesting, and makes you both understand and want to keep watching it is because of the characters, particularly the two leads, sort of, I guess you could say, Constance Wu and Jennifer Lopez, who give probably two of their career best performances in this. It's partly because the performances are so compelling and so great, and Jennifer Lopez probably gives one of her greatest performances, if not her greatest performance, as kind of one of the great movie star kind of performances of the year. You're very aware that she's Jennifer Lopez in the same way you're very aware that it's Jimmy Stewart or Cary Grant or Marilyn Monroe or whatever, but that's kind of who Jennifer Lopez is at this point. And it kind of reminded me of a thing that I've been saying for years, is that she started as a very compelling film actress and then sort of blew up and became a superstar and sort of like ignored that for the most part. When she was coming up, she was in films like Selena, she was in a Bob Rafelson movie, she was in Out of Sight, she was in The Cell, and she was way more interested in being like an actress first, majorly being like a critically acclaimed, interesting actress. And I don't know if it was representation or a priority switch or whatever happened, but she decided sort of not to do that. I think The Cell was sort of the last one, and whenever The Wedding Planner happened, it was kind of like that was over. It's kind of interesting to see her in kind of a crime film, because this is a crime film. It's a hustle film. It's called Hustlers, I guess. It's a heist film. It's all those things. She is so good at it. And I don't know if she's really done a crime film, maybe enough if we count that, but who does? But like a crime film to this degree since like Out of Sight, and she is so good in those. This is one of the great movie star performances because you cannot keep your eyes off of her, and that's not in terms of how attractive she is, it's just how charismatic she is and how that quality, that star quality, you can't not think about. And I could probably just do the whole video on how amazing Jennifer Lopez was in this movie, but goddamn, do some more crime movies, because holy shit, she was good in this. It was just like, I absolutely love seeing it. I mean, it's like she comes out, you know what, this is just gonna become about her, and I don't care, because like when she comes out and the scene and she like does this dance to Fiona Apple's Criminal, and it's just like, holy crap, I get why she is like the biggest stripper in the whole strip club basically. And then you see her just like smoking a cigarette like with this fur coat on the roof, and you're like, holy shit, what the fuck? It's just like the whole time, the whole movie. There's a scene where you're just watching her wearing a hoodie and the camera's behind her and you're just seeing waist up, so it's not like nothing sexy going on in this shot, but I was so compelled just watching her walk. She's just so charismatic in this, and I want her to play so many more criminals. It's really upsetting she doesn't do it very often, frankly, because damn. And then even Constance Wu, who I think, as someone who's played lead in two movies I've seen now, this and Crazy Rich Asians, she's very good at having other supporting performances kind of bounce off her. She's a good lead because she's a good baseline, and that baseline can kind of like keep the movie together. In some ways, she's sort of the Ray Liotta. You're seeing her telling a journalist played by Julia Stiles their whole story. If you're wondering how is Julia Stiles in this movie when you've never seen her in any of the ads, that's because she's playing like the journalist, not a fun stripper. A lot of this film is about relationships and female relationships, and this is directed by Lorraine Scraffen or whatever. I'm not sure how to say that, but I think the female gaze in this film is very important, because as much as if a film directed by a guy is about a strip club, it's much more leering, it's more male gazy. This is very much about the importance of female relationships, the importance of relationships with other women, the importance of female relationships, and the importance that these two characters of Ramona and Destiny had to one another, and how important that relationship was to both of them, both motherly and sisterly and friend-wise, and it plays into all those things, and I think she does a really good job of that. As a kind of hustle film, part of me goes between this, which is weird, that like I know this director hasn't really done a lot of crime films, and in some ways this feels very self-assured, almost like a studio director who just does crime movies, just like decently good studio kind of crime films, and this feels like they very much perfected it, and this is the fifth one. And in other ways it feels like he cares way more about how she's telling the story and all those things, and he's less directing it in a crime film way. So it's very interesting. I think it works in both ways. I don't really have any sort of issues with this movie, frankly. I actually really loved it quite a bit. I almost want to rewatch it because it feels like there's so much in it. It feels like Goodfellas in that way, because in Goodfellas is like one of the most rewatchable Scorsese films. I mean, I've rewatched Taxi Driver more, but that's because I'm clearly fucked up or something. But like, I think the reason Goodfellas plays so much on cable and for like non-fucked up normal people or something is because there's so much in there with the narration, with everything going on, with the compelling characters, with seeing them rise and everything like that. And in this, like, it sets up the economic situation, which, you know, you see them in the strip club and Usher's there, and it's just like this amazing, huge, beautiful thing. And then when the fall happens, and the fall in their personal lives, you see how they've changed and everything's changed. You kind of get why they're doing this, but why they're desperate enough to do this, and how the times have changed, that this is what their reality has become. So you almost, like, I think in a lot of crime films, you know, this is about the ego, this is about me growing up and so forth. In this, it's more like, look, we have to do something because economically we are fucked. And I think that almost makes it more compelling in a lot of ways, and I think they did that very well. Most of the people that they are kind of screwing over, you don't feel very sympathetic for. I was okay with that because they're stockbrokers, and fuck those guys. Only guy I really recognize, there's a guy at the end who, if you've seen the film, you know is kind of a bigger turning point. But they also had the older brother from Home Alone had a small role in this, which I always like seeing him. Hustlers has a great cast. You barely see Cardi B and Lizzo. Both have fun scenes, but they're like so very little in this movie that they really shouldn't be on the poster, but they are. But I also like, you know, Lily Reinhart, Keke Palmer. I thought were both very good, and everyone has good chemistry with one another. You get like how they would be a gang, how they would work with one another, why they would work with one another, you know, how they would be able to set this whole thing up. It naturally plays well within itself, and it's just a very well thought out kind of movie with a lot of fun details. It's very watchable, it's very fun in a lot of ways. It can be depressing in some cases, but I think it has that kind of fun spirit. It has a very rewatchable spirit. If this is on HBO a lot, probably watch it 3 or 4 times. I think it's probably one of the great crime movies of this year, and probably one of the great crime movies of this decade. You'll probably not stop hearing about Hustlers for a long time, and that's because of big movie star kind of performance for Jennifer Lopez, but that's also because of what Constance Wu does. It's also from, you know, that this is written and directed in such a kind of different, kind of compelling sort of way. And because it's directed by a female filmmaker, I never felt I was watching the strip club in the same way. It did feel more female gazy in terms of the strip club. It didn't feel exploitive at all, really. It felt much more from the female perspective. In fact, there's not really very many compelling male characters, which, to be honest, I really liked everything this film was doing. You know, I think next to this and the 2 Magic Mike movies, this seems like it was such a fertile ground for people to go into, and it's interesting there aren't a lot of films about female strippers at all. I kind of wish there were more, frankly. I wish there was more representation, because it does seem like, you know, a sort of an interesting way to make money and an interesting lifestyle. And I think they play into that because you sort of think about all those things, but you're also thinking about, you know, maybe those Wall Street guys deserved it because look what they did to their lives, but look what they did to everyone's lives. And you kind of get a representation of how rough it all is out there. In some ways, it's more the perspective of the movie or how they did it and the actual subject matter. But in a lot of ways, I found that the whole package of Hustlers to be a really compelling, really special, really awesome kind of crime movie. One of the more fun crime movies because it focused more on why they were doing this in the first place and how they were shepherded and what really mattered to these characters. Whether that's true or not, in terms of the real life perspective, I haven't read the article yet. I would like to, but I really was just kind of in love with this film, but also had a lot of fun with it. There's not a lot of fun crime movies in a post-recession world that also wants to deal with all those issues more seriously and more confronting them than a lot of those films that want to be as serious about it as they usually are. And I quite really liked this film. I think it probably actually does it a little better than that Big Short movie, which this and that are produced by the same people. But I think in a lot of ways this makes a more interesting case for it and kind of confronts a lot of things about the male ego and all those things going on with the economic collapse that went into all of that, while also having a sick cameo from Usher. I think this film is kind of, in a lot of ways, the real full package of doing something like this, wrapped up in an entertaining Hollywood film. It's kind of an ultimate kind of Hollywood thing, because you get a star performance, you get to talk about something that's on everyone's mind, you get to tackle a major issue, and you get to make it entertaining with everyone having a good time and having a cry and having a great story. That's what a great Hollywood movie is, and I think in a lot of ways Hustlers is one of the great Hollywood movies of this year. So if you've seen Hustlers and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.